When you think of Santa Barbara and everything it has to offer, Stearns Wharf is probably the first thing that comes to mind. Stearns Wharf is celebrating its 148th anniversary. Let's get to know the wharf a little more. This Santa Barbara landmark, Stearns Wharf, turned 148 years old in October, making it the oldest working wharf in California.
I mean, it's amazing just to think that a structure this big out over the ocean has been here virtually unchanged for 148 years. That is pretty amazing. So I'm optimistic and pretty excited that we'll be here to celebrate the 150th as well.
John Peck Stearns built the wharf in 1872 to import lumber directly into the city, making it critical during the time period.
So John Peck Stearns came to Santa Barbara. He was out of Santa Cruz, California. Actually, he was a transplant for the gold rush and realized that there was more opportunities than just mining for gold, and somehow got into the lumber business and moved to Santa Barbara around 1867. Santa Barbara at that time had a small wharf at the end of Chapala Street, which didn't reach far enough out, so boats still had to tie up to it, transfer all the goods up a ladder, and Stearns offered to extend this Chapala Street wharf, and the owner said no. So Stearns got the permission to build this wharf at the foot of State Street, and now ships could simply tie up to Santa Barbara to Stearns Wharf, unload the goods easily onto the deck here. So he really opened the door for Santa Barbara.
The wharf not only allowed for the imports of goods directly into the city, but has evolved into a central piece of the city, a place where locals and visitors gather.
We have a pedestrian counter at the entrance, and we kind of typically get upwards of 700,000 or 800,000 pedestrians only. As you know, there's a whole bunch of vehicle traffic that also comes out here.
Just take a look at everyone strolling along the wharf, wandering into businesses, some enjoying a glass of wine, others buying a souvenir, locals gathering for meals, and even some casting their fishing lines into the ocean to see what they can catch. The wharf really is a place for everyone to come and enjoy. But with success comes challenges, and Stearns Wharf has faced its fair share over the years.
Lots of fires on the wharf. There's kind of two things we hate out here, is fire and large amounts of water. So there was a big fire, I think it was 1921, the Potter Fire, and then I think it was 1973, the big fire at the Harbor Restaurant, which shut the wharf down for a long time. And I think it was 1989, there was a big fire out by Moby Dick's and Shellfish, which closed the last part of the wharf. And there's lots of little tiny fires all the time, and it spreads quickly because all of the deck boards are impregnated with creosote, and that stuff goes up very quickly.
And fires aren't the only challenge the wharf has had to overcome. It's also had to overcome economic challenges.
One of the biggest challenges was this switch from private industry to city ownership. And so in the 70s, there was a decision made to turn the wharf back over for city ownership. And this was a really big change. The wharf was even closed for a period of time. I believe it was closed for 2 or 3 years in the 70s while the city and the waterfront figured out what to do and what the plan forward was with the wharf. And that was when the wharf really changed from serving industry. And now the whole thing has shifted. It's far less industrial and it's much more tourism and recreation serving. So it really is more of an asset for the public now.
And now Stearns Wharf is facing another challenge, rising sea levels.
One of the main challenges going forward is unique. It's sea level rise. And so this wharf is kind of fixed at the level it is. And so there's some real considerations right now about sea level rise and the concerns that brings. Even within the last few years, some storms have overtaken some of the restaurants on the wharf. If that starts happening in more frequency, we're going to have to start making decisions on temporary closures, modifications to the wharf. And so these are kind of big dollar changes that need community input going forward. And so I really do see sea level rise as one of the main challenges going forward for Stearns Wharf.
On the less serious side, there was one other challenge faced by the wharf that some of us may remember.
I'm sure many of you will remember when the Joker tried to blow the wharf up. And thank God Batman was here, got the bomb, tossed it off the wharf, and saved Stearns Wharf.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
So that was just a movie. And our scenic wharf is perfect for Hollywood, as well as the millions of personal videos and photos people take every year. So it requires a lot of work to make the wharf ready for its close-up.
The maintenance of a 2,300-foot long roadway, wooden roadway over the ocean is a pretty monumental task. There's over 2,000 piles that are driven down into the seabed, and they spend their whole life in an ocean environment. They're submerged in water. The majority of the piles are made of wood, and so they're creosote-soaked wood, and so over time they do deteriorate.
Each pile must be examined to ensure they're sturdy enough to hold the weight of the wharf not just above sea level, but below the surface as well.
The waterfront maintenance staff has professional divers. So we have city staff that are under the piers doing annual surveys from the seafloor. Kudos to the waterfront maintenance staff. They're really the kind of unsung heroes who keep this wharf maintained and going. Every year they replace up to 30 of those 2,000 piles, and that's no small task. Most of that work happens at night so that we don't have any impacts to the Stearns Wharf businesses, and we can keep that going.
Dozens of piles need to be replaced on an annual basis, and the city's waterfront department is constantly planning and budgeting for this maintenance.
The pile replacement process is really interesting in itself, and so it's pretty difficult and invasive. We'll have a crew that will come out with cranes and heavy equipment, and they'll remove these deck boards and either remove or cut off existing piles that are damaged or need to be replaced. And then they'll have all the new piles laid out on the deck, and they'll drive them down. Not a quiet process. They use they'll pile drive these piles, and so when this is going on, it typically happens out of a month every year, and they will they'll drive these piles down back into the seabed and have to replace all the deck boards over top of them. So we're constantly budgeting to replace these piles to keep the Stearns Wharf up and running for decades to come.
And we are proud to celebrate 148 years of having Stearns Wharf in the city of Santa Barbara.
Well, I just hope everybody comes out and enjoys the free fishing out here and the views, and comes to visit all the merchants out here, and they can enjoy Santa Barbara from Stearns Wharf.
Thank you, John Peck Stearns, for this Santa Barbara gem, and happy anniversary, Stearns Wharf. If you would like to learn more about the wharf, visit their website, stearnswharf.org.